Well, here we go again. Third year in a row that I'm doing this. I guess I really am doing this every year. So, of course, I was really looking forward to this year. There were so many great releases happening this year, and even if there was a period where there wasn't anything coming out, I still have my backlog to get to, so I thought I'd have a lot of games on my plate this year, but sadly, it did not really go as planned. I lost my grandmother earlier this year, so I had to spend a lot of time dealing with that, so as a result, I couldn't really play as many games as I wanted to. And even when I did play a new game, it ended up being something unexpected. So, with the introduction out of the way, let's go on to the first game I played this year. My first pick may shock some people, but like I said, I did make some unexpected picks this year. I ended up picking up Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl on Switch. I wasn't really paying attention to this game back in 2021 because of how I thought people were really overhyping the game by calling it the Smash Killer, which is behavior that even the developers have gone on record to state that they do not condone. But I was actually starting to get curious about this game, and I saw that it was on sale for only $15 US, which is a deal that you can't beat, so I decided to try it out. To make a long story short, I had a lot of problems with this game at first, so I stopped playing it since I found it to be very forgettable, but soon enough, this game did something that got me to change my mind about it. That's right, they finally gave us Jenny. As someone who is such a big fan of My Life as a Teenage Robot, it felt so satisfying to see Nickelodeon finally acknowledge the show's existence for once. The Jenny DLC was the game's first piece of paid DLC though, but I bought her in a heartbeat, and I have absolutely no regrets doing so. Seeing how much care and effort was put into this DLC just felt so special to me, and Jenny was so much fun to play. She became my favorite character in the game for sure, and I think I'm actually better at playing as Jenny in this game than I am at playing as Sonic in Smash Bros. So yeah, that's a thing that happened. This was already enough to redeem the game in my eyes, but this was just the beginning. They also added items and voice acting, which really went a long way to improve the game, and they actually got Janice Kawaii to reprise her role as Jenny, which also made me incredibly happy to hear her voice for the first time in 14 years, and that she still got it. It's like when a friend who you thought was dead suddenly shows up at your doorstep like in Uncharted 4. They also added 2 other paid DLC characters, those being Hugh Neutron and Rocco. I didn't really care about Hugh, to be honest. I've just never been a big fan of that character from Jimmy Neutron. And I was also disappointed that his stage wasn't the candy bar. But hey, for the people who wanted him to be in the game, I'm happy for you, because you probably felt how I did when they added Jenny. The last character they added was Rocco, which I decided to buy him and play as him. Even though I do like his moveset, I kinda suck at playing as him. So overall, while the game may have been disappointing at first, I think it managed to pull off a redemption arc. I genuinely enjoy this game now, and I think it's a shame that the way the game is now is not how it ended up releasing back in October 2021. But then again, I guess stingy Nickelodeon is to blame for that. They probably forced them into rushing the game out. In fact, I'd even say that I like this game more than Smash Ultimate.
Wait! Don't shoot!
I admit that Smash Ultimate is the overall better made game, but I like All-Star Brawl more just because of my personal preferences and experiences. I was pretty late to the party with Smash Ultimate, so by the time I finally played it, I and everyone else was over it, And I also didn't like their choices for DLC fighters in Smash Ultimate, especially due to the overabundance of Fire Emblem characters. It makes it feel like part of this game's identity is being a commercial for Fire Emblem. Whereas with All-Star Brawl, I had a great time with it, and the game did a great job appealing to me with the amount of passion put into Jenny's inclusion. Oh, and you know what else is cool? This wasn't the only game this year to have Jenny in it. We got not one, not two, but 3 games with her in it. That is just absolutely insane that within the same year, we went from Jenny only having 1 video game appearance back in 2007 to now having 4 video game appearances overall. Whoever was responsible for all of this, thank you. Something I thought I'd mention real quick is that when I went over to my sister's house to stay there for a weekend and watch Sonic Movie 2 with her on opening night, she told me that she got a PS5 recently and told me that I could play it while I'm there. So I brought my copy of Spider-Man Miles Morales over, and of course I played the game 3 times before this, so it was nothing new to me, but it was pretty cool to get some hands-on experience with the PS5 version of the game. The game looks amazing in 60 FPS. The haptic feedback feels great when you use your Venom powers, and I love the way the adaptive triggers feel when you're web swinging. I've also heard some people say that the new Peter Parker face looks better in the PS5 version of Miles Morales, and upon playing it for myself, I can confirm that. But I will say that doing the free PS5 upgrade was kinda painful. You have to insert the disc and wait for it to download the entirety of the PS4 version, and then redeem your free download of the PS5 version, and then you have to wait for the entirety of the PS5 version to download. So you have to download the entire game twice. I really didn't expect it to work this way. It was really clunky and time consuming. Our next game is one that I didn't expect to jump into so soon, but I did regardless. That being Cuphead. Technically, this isn't my first time playing Cuphead. I did play it back when it released on Switch, but I kept dying and eventually stopped playing. I just wasn't in the mood for it anymore at the time. But thanks to all of the Cuphead hype this year, with the Cuphead Show and the DLC, I decided to hop back into it, and I'm so glad that I did. Of course I died a lot, but I didn't let that discourage me. I kept going, learning from every failure, gradually getting better and better, and I got pretty good at this game. Of course, this game does have a story to it, but I feel like that's a story in of itself. Going from being outmatched by a flower all the way to being able to beat the devil actually felt really satisfying and inspiring. So that's why I feel like the player's experience is actually part of the story as well. This game does actually get very addicting. All of the fails just further determine me to keep pushing towards victory. And of course, I gotta point out how smartly designed this game is. You never die because of poorly thought out design choices or bugs. All of the deaths are from legitimate difficulty. And of course I love the art style, the character design, and the music. Studio MDHR really nailed every single aspect of this game overall. So once the game was over, I just wanted to play more. So I decided that I'm gonna try to 100% the entire game. But let's not get ahead of myself here. By the time I finished the base game, the DLC had already been out for a few weeks, so I played the DLC and was really impressed by it. This didn't really feel like DLC. This more so felt like a completely new game. So major hats off to the developers. They didn't have to pack as much as they did into this DLC, but I have nothing but respect for the fact that they did. I'd say that this is the best video game DLC of all time, and this was such a worthy send-off to Cuphead. I just hope this isn't the last we see of Studio MDHR as a game studio. They should make another game, whether it be Cuphead 2 or something new. Now, it's time for the main attraction. This was the game that I was looking forward to the most this year. That being Splatoon 3, of course. I've been a long time Splatoon fan ever since the first game came out back in 2015. So of course, the basic idea of the Splatoon series are nothing new to me, but I always found it to be one of the most creative games out there, so I was really looking forward to seeing what Splatoon 3 would bring to the table. Obviously, I don't have time to do a full-on 20-minute review of this game, so to just highlight my favorite aspects of the game, and how those aspects make it stand out from the previous two games, those would be the special weapons, the story mode, and the handling of the new idols. Splatoon 3 really made me realize how the first two games didn't entirely get the special weapons right. Specials were really OP in the first game, and while that was part of the fun of it and added to the chaotic nature of the game, it still could have been balanced better. And when 3 came out, I realized that Splatoon 2 specials basically had the same problem. The specials weren't quite as OP and chaotic as they were in the first game, but they were still kinda OP in the aspect that more often than not, whenever someone cranks out a special weapon, your only option was to retreat. And this issue was especially apparent with the Tenna missiles. I'm very glad that Splatoon 3 has managed to fix these issues by making all of the specials have some sort of weakness. It really helps to make the game feel a lot more balanced. The story mode is hands down the best single player campaign in the entire franchise. They honed in on the best aspects of the first two campaigns, as well as Splatoon 2's Octo expansion, while also getting rid of some of the weaknesses and pulled it off so gracefully. I basically just described what you should do when making a sequel, so that goes to show that it really succeeded where it needed to. You don't have to be familiar with the previous games in order to understand the storyline, but if you are someone, such as myself, who has, it'll make the whole experience feel more impactful. I am 100% serious when I say that the ending of this game almost made me cry, because I never thought I'd see the day that the franchise would go this far. This game has been described as the finale of the trilogy, and as such, it was amazing to get to see all of these characters one more time, and to see everything build up to this. And as for the idols, this is the first time that there's 3 of them, which is really cool and fitting considering that this is the 3rd game in the franchise. So that obviously means that there's 3 teams during Splatfest instead of just 2. Which I think is great since that means more variety as a whole. And this also factors into the new tricolor mode where 3 teams face off against each other as they try to attack or defend the Ultra Signal. I had a lot of fun in this mode during the Pokemon Splatfest, and that Splatfest as a whole is some of the most fun I've had in any of these games, and is definitely one of my favorite Splatfests of all time thus far, partially thanks to my good friend Sonic Kai being there with me throughout the majority of it. They really nailed the personality of these idols as well. The dynamic between the idols has always been, you have the bright and positive one versus the more serious and sometimes a little bit rude one. I wasn't sure how much I was gonna like Deep Cut at first, but they may be the strongest idol group yet, since I think they pulled off that dynamic the best between Shiver and Fry. And in addition to that, you also have Big Man. No, I'm not talking about the Spider-Man villain. I'm talking about this Manta Ray right here, who is the very first male idol in the franchise. And I love that he's the guy who brings balance to the group, and he just vibes. So Big Man really adds a whole new layer to the idols that you didn't have in the previous games. The thing about the Splatoon idols has always been that you can't really have one without the other, so Splat 3 took that idea and ran with it. The great example of this is how I'm not really a big fan of Shiver by herself, but when you have her personality alongside of Fry and Big Man, it's so great to see all of them interact with each other. As a whole, Splatoon 3 has managed to revitalize the series in a fresh new way. They didn't change too much to make it feel like a huge departure from the series' roots, nor did they not add enough to make it feel like a pointless sequel that feels more like Splatoon 2.5 than it does Splatoon 3. This really was a make or break moment for the franchise, so I'm really glad to have seen it pay off. Not that I had much doubts in the first place. Splatoon is now officially my favorite video game trilogy of all time. Or at least for now it is, because it probably won't hold that throne much longer because of Spider-Man, but regardless, Splatoon 3 is a masterpiece all around. The last game I played is God of War 2018. This is an M-rated game, so I won't show any footage of it, but I've been meaning to get around to playing this game ever since I bought it back in 2020. But I'm kinda glad I ended up playing it when I did, because I played this game shortly after Ragnarok came out, so I got to play it while God of War was trendy. Overall, I definitely think that the story and voice acting were the highlights of this game. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the gameplay and music as well, but this game would not be as good as it is without the plot. I really didn't think I would get as invested in this story as I did, but some of the moments in this game gave me the same impact that I would feel in Insomniac's Spider-Man games or the Uncharted games, which of course those games are top of the line for me, so that's huge praise. I had a great time with this game, and I'll definitely be getting God of War Ragnarok later on, because I'm really looking forward to seeing how they expand upon the story and gameplay. One more thing I'd like to discuss is that this year was a great year for video game adaptations as well. Typically video game adaptations suck. I'm not just talking about movies. Even TV shows based off of video games aren't very good most of the time, but this year managed to be an exception. Of course I watched Sonic Movie 2 first, and this movie's praises have been sung time and time again, so I can't really add much to that, but I can say that I think this movie has officially cemented the Sonic Cinematic Universe as the definitive Sonic experience. This is hands down my favorite iteration of Sonic and Knuckles, and I think Jim Carrey may even be the best Robotnik as well. I think I still prefer 4Kids era Tails over movie Tails, but that could change in the future. I'm so glad that this is the version of the Sonic franchise that the current kids are going to be growing up with, as well as the one that casual audience members that don't know much about the games will be exposed to. As someone who's been a Sonic fan for basically his whole life, this movie was an absolute dream come true to me, and has even become my favorite movie of all time. I'm so glad to see that Sonic got the adaptation that he deserved, and I can't wait to see where the SCU goes next with the Knuckles spin-off show and Sonic Movie 3. The next one I watched was the Uncharted movie, and I actually enjoyed it. I was one of the people who thought this movie was gonna suck because I hated the idea of Tom Holland being Nathan Drake, and it looked like a weird hodgepodge between Uncharted 3 and 4, but upon watching the movie, I actually liked Holland as Nathan Drake because he had great chemistry with the other actors, and his stunt work was pretty great as well. Now I can't really imagine anyone else in the role, so it definitely worked for me. The only thing that's kinda a shame about this movie is that it didn't capture the spirit of the games, which yes, I have played all 4 of the main Uncharted games on PS4 and loved every second of it, so I do wish that we got an Uncharted movie that felt more like the games, but I still enjoyed this movie for what it was, and I hope they make a sequel. The last one I watched is the Cuphead Show, and I really didn't expect this show to be as good as it was. But it has not only become my favorite TV show based off of a video game, but it's also become my 3rd favorite cartoon of all time, with Spectacular Spider-Man and SpongeBob being the only ones above it. Speaking of SpongeBob, this show feels like it's the new SpongeBob. The show's overall style is somewhat similar to SpongeBob, and Cuphead acts like SpongeBob, and the show is also like SpongeBob in the sense that the episodes are pulled off to such perfection that you could watch the same episodes over and over again and never get tired of them. So overall, the Cuphead Show is an absolute masterpiece, and it absolutely deserves to get renewed. Now for the part where I rank all of the games. Obviously, Splatoon 3 is number 1. Number 2 is Cuphead. Number 3 is God of War. And number 4 is Nick All-Star Brawl. So overall, despite this year not going as I planned, I still found a lot of enjoyment in the various video game related content that I indulged in this year, and I can definitely see myself being nostalgic towards this year at some point in the future, especially since it's the year that we had Splatoon 3, Sonic Movie 2, as well as the Cuphead DLC and the Cuphead Show. Whenever I think about 2022, Movie Sonic, Deep Cut, and Cuphead are going to be the icons who defined this year. I don't really have high expectations for new game releases in 2023. The only games I'm really excited for in 2023 are SpongeBob the Cosmic Shake and Marvel's Spider-Man 2. But even then, I'm probably not going to be able to play Spider-Man 2, at least not in 2023, because of the fact that I don't have a PS5, and I have no idea when I'll be able to get one, so I'm going to end up getting the entire game spoiled for me before I get the chance to even touch the box of a PS5, so that's gonna sting. But at least I still got SpongeBob to look forward to, as well as the rest of my backlog. I guess I'm looking forward to Dead Island 2 as well, but I'm not super hyped about that game or anything. I forget about it sometimes, so it's just kind of there for me. So, that wraps up everything. Catch ya later.
Quick stretch, little snack, and here we go. Muggsy, what we need is a little fun and adventure. I'm not so sure. You know what I do when I'm not so sure? I double down. What does that even mean? Okay, is this over yet? There's no way it swept past me. I'm not that lucky.
Stop it when they rock.
Just hope we're not too late.
From my experience, Team Grass has been very aggressive.
Getting worse, but it's all pointless anyway.
This is what we're gonna do. Step 1, light taunt. Step 2, I have no idea.
Something's gotta break eventually.
Bring me my finest demon!
Oh, break the winter soldier.
Alright, let's make this grass wet. Please do not take that line out of context.
Do I look like I need your power?
what did we learn?
Get better at this game. So what's the next Splatfest?
Maybe the real Splatfest was the friends we made along the way.
Yes.